All right, good morning, hello, and welcome to the Coach's Corner, brought to you by the Endurance Lab, where you can join the coaches live and unscripted as we recap the week and answer your questions from the forum. My name's Jason Flores, one of your Endurance Lab coaches, and today I'm joined by coaches Theia Freestead, Ian Murray, and our nutritional therapist, Andrea Cullen. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, we've got a great lineup of topics here. We are just going to make sure we get everything shared out. You can join us on several different platforms this morning. So what you see and what you hear today is raw and unedited commentary from our coaches. So this gives you a chance to be part of our show by asking questions. So jump on live and be part of the show. So we'll go ahead and get started here. I'll roll down to our show notes this morning. We got a lot of fun topics. We're going to cover a little bit about cyclocross, some evolution of the Grand Fondo, a little bit about indoor training and cadence, and then of course with this time of year, kind of how we should be thinking about eating, training, and kind of how that intermixes with our seasons. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to pass this over to Theia, and she's had a great adventure and experience with cyclocross. If you haven't checked out our YouTube channel, there is some great video and commentary there. So definitely check that out. But Theia, tell us a little bit about your journey through cyclocross.
Sure. So I decided, and a couple of episodes back, we brought up cyclocross in a sense of, how to train for cyclocross.
With our
if you have been training and you had your summer season, or, how should you schedule your week if you have winter races or fall races in cyclocross every week, etc. So I thought I would bring in a little bit from a perspective of somebody who has never done cyclocross and started this year. I decided to start because I'm sitting here in the Midwest of the United States and there's not much to do, right, this time of the year. No climbs, no fun races. So I'll try cyclocross. And so my first race was about 7 or 8 weeks ago. And I have been making videos of every single race that I attended. So I've done 6 in total. And I decided to do it the first time. It was literally on a Saturday. I went with a group of ladies here in the area who put together a sort of like a skills. It's not even a clinic. It's just they get together and the ones who know more teach the ones who know nothing. And it was very helpful to learn some dismounting, remounting, and some of those skills that you see people do crazy stuff, I guess, in cyclocross. And I never thought I would be interested in doing that. I used to say, I just want to be on my bike. If I need to do something that requires me to get off my bike, I'm not interested. But to my surprise, I completely fell in love with cyclocross. And I even think it's my favorite event, type of event at this point. Well, I would like to do some climbing too, but there's no hills here. But I fell in love with it. And the first race was so funny. So that video is out there on our YouTube channel. And I didn't even know how to get off the bike properly or how to jump over barriers properly. And you see me like laughing, literally laughing, and not being able to clip back on my pedals. And people on the sidelines, they're so supportive. If you have ever been to a cyclocross race, the environment is the best. People are cheering for you. There's heckling. There's fun things.
Oh, yeah,
there's a family event. It's at a park, right? It's on a weekend. It's on a Sunday. It's an all-day thing. So
there's
sometimes beer involved. Exactly. All of that. And so there's even a section there that I was going upstairs and just rolling my bike around next to me, going up, and the couple sitting right next to, on the grass was like, yay, go. And I just said, this is my first cyclocross race. And they're like, you're doing great. And I knew I'm not, it's just, but I'm having a blast. And that's the great thing too about trying something you've never done. There's no pressure. You just go out there and have fun. So the more I got into it, the more I practiced. So I would go to the park at the end of my street here, because anywhere there's grass, you can practice. And I kept practicing the skills, because training wise, I have been training all year long. So I've got quite a bit of training in the VO2 zone, in the explosive zone, which is what you need for cyclocross. Yep. And so I knew I had that. That wasn't a problem. It was really the skills of turns, dismounting, remounting, how to go through mud, how to go through sand, how to go through roots in the middle of the woods, all of those things. But really, it's a learn by doing thing. So each race I learned some more. And each race I got a little bit better at something. It's the start, it's the turns. And I sent my videos to my coach, and he looked at it and he's like, you got to work on this, and that, And you can see, so if you're interested, take a look at the videos from the first race to the last. And so the first race, I finished 23rd out of maybe 28 riders. And then in the sixth race that I did, which was last weekend, I finished second. Oh. And so this is women's category 4 or 5. In the meantime, I upgraded to Cat 4. I requested the upgrade because I was finishing top 5 and then top 10 and then top 5. But also because in the series that I attend, the Chicago Cyclocross Cup, the juniors start 2 minutes after the women's 4 or 5. So it's a mess out there. And the juniors, there are juniors 9 to 14. They're so good and they're fearless, and they're passing you so fast in such tight spots. And for people like me who are first timers, we're like, oh my God, what's this person doing? I'm gonna, and I'm falling. So I had crashes. And it's all in the descriptions of the videos. I crashed on this one, I crashed on that one. And there's some choice words too in the video, so don't mind those. But yeah. And now I can race with the 3/4s and stay off the back because those women are so strong. But again, you don't know you like something until you try. Mm-hmm. In terms of training, if you want to try cyclocross, if you have been training for, let's say, crits, if you have been working on VO2, explosive power, short, hard intervals, you'll be fine in cyclocross. Nice. So yeah, that's my story there. Yeah, and I know
Ian, you've done a season or two before this, or this is kind of your first full venture into cyclocross as well?
No, I've done a few races before this one, and this was the issue I have with cyclocross is that it's cold.
Yeah,
there's that.
I just can't do it. I love it. I had so much fun at the races here, but next year obviously I won't be able to do cyclocross. But when I get back to somewhere that does it, I will participate like in the September-October races, and I'll call it at that. Because this weekend it was pretty bad weather, and this upcoming weekend there's nothing right around here. I don't think this weekend, and then it gets just really bad after that. And I don't mind it so much during the race. It's like if I could show up, get on my bike, race and leave.
And go home. Yeah.
I'm good. Or race and then make sure I could change clothes and hang out like that. But I mean, it's just that you warm up and the men's Cat 4 or 5 is usually, after the kids race. So you get in there and you warm up, and then there's an hour for the juniors to go. And then we go. So you warm up, and then you're just like, I need to go. And then it's, 20 minutes before the race, you get over to the corrals, and you're 15 minutes, and now you're stripped off your gear and trying to get in there and just freeze. I don't like that.
So let me a word about the cold. I do have a place to be in, like a sheltered place. So you start to kind of get to know people in your area or your local bike shop, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're into a tent. And these tents, they're big, they have walls, they have heaters inside. So then you're hanging out with people. So then that solves that problem, right, Ian? So I'm in there until I have to get out and race. And I can't believe that I'm racing in 46-degree weather only with a jersey on, and some warmers. That's it. I don't even need a vest. I'll put gloves on, but that's it. Not even a head, a beanie or anything. And then I go right back into it. Yeah.
The problem is I don't like people.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Ian would have to make friends, would have to talk to people. Yeah, this doesn't fall under what Ian does.
No, actually, I do have a group that I hang out with, but they're not as well supported, so there's no walls in their tent.
Fair point.
Yeah.
I think it's very cool though, watching Theia, because a lot of coaches have an expectation on themselves of needing to be perfect all of the time. So to go out and just throw yourself in and show everyone else to go and do it. Whereas I know plenty of coaches that feel, even though they're trying to juggle so many things, that they have to be nearly better than everyone and at the top level all of the time, secret training and stuff like this. But you're sort of giving everyone permission to just go and try it, which is very, very cool.
You're giving everyone permission to be mediocre. Good job.
Ian.
Hey, where's my medal? I gotta.
Yeah.
I do have one.
No, it is fun because actually that's one of the things I try to tell the people I coach too is it's okay to go out and do things that maybe they're just fun. Like I have one athlete, she likes to do paddleboard races periodically. We don't train for it all that much, but when it's time for paddleboard race, we'll throw a couple weeks of paddleboarding in, and she'll go out and have a good time. And I always tell her make sure she practices her paddleboard jiu-jitsu and jousting, because at the end of the race, when it comes down to you're racing against someone, if you smack them with your paddle outside where the judges can see, you're going to win the race.
There you go.
Like gladiators.
I like it.
That's right.
I like it.
That's right.
So as we kind of talk about the different things that we do, so obviously a lot of our riders have a full season of, let's say, Theia mentioned crit racing, triathlon, or even road racing and like stage road racing. There is a season of where things are shifting, whether it be to cyclocross or even to Grand Fondos. And that's one thing here in California, that the season is coming towards an end, but still a lot of Grand Fondos are happening. These are races where they may not start particularly the same way a stage race would race, and particularly they are kind of all levels. Anywhere from beginners just trying to complete, let's say, 100 miles or 100 kilometers, all the way to groups that are using team tactics to kind of bring riders to the front and kind of taking the whole race on as if it was a 100-mile day stage race, for example, like a classics race. But there has been some change in how Grand Fondos have been run here in this last season. And that's what I wanted to get some of the opinion of the coaches. And in particular, there has been some neutralization of the rides. For example, in the 100-mile ride, one I'm actually doing on this upcoming Saturday, the name of the ride is called the Tour de Foothills. So it takes 100 miles of some of the greatest areas right along the foothills here in Southern California, puts them together. They're not closed roads per se, but there are closed sections. So what they've done is they are going to close a section off where they will have a timing chip for each of us to be able to get timed for a KOM climb, and a section called a speed time challenge, which is a closed section where you're able to get timed for that. So the time is no longer the time that you finish from beginning mile 0 to mile 100 and you cross the line, but in fact, these two times combined in the KOM and the speed time challenge. So you'll have a placing in those. So there's a little bit of a difference. I see Ian kind of shaking his head. So it does change kind of the dynamic of, right off the gun. So obviously there are some opinions and then some safety things. And so I guess I can barely see Ian there making funny faces. So I'll send it to Ian. What are your thoughts of this 100-mile race changing into a couple segments that you get timed on versus how it's always traditionally been?
You guys hold hands while you ride, blow some
you've got
soap liquid bubbles, give hugs at the top of the KOM.
Cigarettes.
I mean,
you're right.
It's organic. You guys all vape while you do it too, I'm sure. No, I mean, look, I got it. There's you want to try and make these inclusive, but it's a race or it's not a race.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. You either make it a race or you make it a ride. Right. And I actually think when you start throwing these KOMs and speed challenges in there in the middle and everything's neutralized, you actually do run the risk of putting weaker or less experienced riders in the mix with faster, stronger riders. So not so much on the KOM, but maybe the speed section of it.
Right. So I don't know if they're not getting everyone stopped, but you're just getting timed as you come through that section. Yeah. But yeah, so I think you understand. But yeah.
No, I got that. But it's just there's less incentive for the stronger riders to really push the pace from the front, which generally separates the wheat from the chaff. And the less experienced or weaker riders are generally shot out the back into their own groups. But when you don't have that incentive for the stronger, faster riders, you get what we have out here on Haynes Point in DC, where it's just a 3-mile loop, and you get Cat 5s mixed up with Cat 2s on basically a crit course. Yeah. There's no separation, and that can be problematic. Plus, there's do people remember when to turn off the racing? Yeah. When the racing is over.
I think it's definitely a concern. So we were seeing this. Yeah, so I think it depends on where you're at, because a lot of people are looking for, you know, it's that blend of people that may not do racing but want to have some portion of that. So it allows some of that taste of it. But for pure racers or people that are looking for like a 100-mile race, obviously that group is going to go off. I'd imagine still get that separation, but you know, riders will know that there is a time section. I don't think there was any placements at a lot of these fondos per se. There are some timed ones. I had done one at the beginning of the year where the whole thing was timed. But I think that would be more of like a full-on, you know, race type situation. I think this is a fondo ride, trying to add some a couple pieces to it. But I guess we'll see if it brings in more people and people, you know, like to challenge themselves. I think it could be fun. For the ladies here, what are you guys thinking? Would this be something that you'd try or do?
I think that it's trying to cater, of course, to everyone, right? So it's trying to cater to your more leisurely pace type rider and the ones who want to have something to, you know, race against. But at the end of the day, the competitive ones are going to be doing their thing off the front, I think, regardless. If you have the timing, you know, or not, if you have points for KOM or not, I think they'll still do it anyway. So might as well just give them the time.
Yeah, but my issue with that, you should give them the time. But my issue with that is when you do partial closures for a specific portion that's timed, I think once you're in the heat of the race, so to speak, guys are going to forget when to turn that off.
Yeah.
Because if you're going closed to open, you're open to close, close to open, you got to remember to turn it off and turn it back on.
But it's 100 miles though. It's long.
Oh yeah, no, I got it, and that's one of the reasons why I think you should. Like, fondos in general are designed that it's supposed to be inclusive. Mm-hmm. That has a race element to it. Mm-hmm. But it's also got, you know, it's like the Rock and Roll Marathon, right? Or New York City Marathon, or whatever you want to call it, whichever marathon you want to talk about. That's a big one. There's a race element to it, but that's a very small percentage of people that participate. And everyone else, there's still a time, because it's nice to get a time, but there's not really something you're working on that, you know, those people at the back of the race, the 5-hour racers, they're not racers, they're participants.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how the fondos are generally set up. Yeah.
What about you, Andrea? Any these events starting to pop up in your neck of the woods?
Oh, I suppose I'm only starting to get into some of the cycles and sportives. It almost sounds to me like, you know, when you're a newbie on Zwift and every time there's a segment, you go off like a lunatic racing. And then after a month or two, you're like, was that a sprint?
Yes.
Because you're just training. So I suppose you're kind of going to do what you want. You're going to, if you want a good time on the 100, you're going to do that. If you want segments, I don't know. I suppose safety is always the biggest thing, so long as people are not being stupid on the faster sections.
Yeah.
What? Cyclists be stupid on a fast section?
Yeah, cyclists are. Yeah, you can get like that kind of on the open sections too. So yeah, it's odd. It's an odd crowd out here. You know, season is very, very long here, so people come in very good form even in November. So we'll see how that turns out. I know that group has tried really hard to get the community out here, and it's for some really good causes for the veterans. So I think it's going to be a great event. So shout out to them. So talking about kind of us sprinting on Zwift courses, I know there was a couple topics that were brought up about our new course that they have here on Zwift. So I was hoping to get a little bit of opinion from you guys. One, if you've ridden on the New York course here on Zwift. For those that do indoor training, we'd love to hear what you think. And specifically, kind of how triathlon training or just training in general is good or bad on this course as we kind of ride around it.
Well, I guess you're throwing that to me, so
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, so look, this is triathletes are weird. We're an odd bunch, right? And I'll admit that from the start. And we kind of forget that we're going to have all kinds of terrain and all kinds of different races. So the fact that New York City's got that big climb on it, and it's big enough and steep enough that you're going to have to shift out of your big chain if you're riding at 100%. To maintain a good cadence up there. But I know some people are complaining about that. Well, it's you know, I don't want it to do that, and it's stupid. I should just be able to ride. It's going to affect my training. Well, I mean, the Chattanooga course that I rode, I got out of a big chain. I got out of a small chain. I got in the giant plate that I had on the back of my disc.
Wow.
And I stood up and pedaled 60 RPMs up portions of that climb. So that's one of the things that bothers me most when I hear triathletes complain about a course, because every course is going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to learn to manage the course, and you shift your gears to ride appropriately, or here's an idea. This is a strange one. It's a novel concept. If you don't want to ride the big climb, don't ride the big climb.
Take a turn. But
there's a lot of rolling hills down there, and
there's
almost every course outside of Florida, Ironman Texas, Maryland. Okay, basically not Ironman courses. In most of the U.S., they're rolling, and you have to learn to deal with that. It's not there's very few outside of Ironman, Florida, Maryland, Texas, Arizona, and a few others that are just pancake flat, and you just ride. So, I mean, it's a ridiculous complaint that it's not a good course to train on, because, frankly, if you can push the power, it's a good course to train on. I would say the only bad course to train on is an 8% straight downhill.
coming down a hill. Yeah, I think a couple things can be adjusted, of course. And, of course, Ian brings up good points of being able to use different cadences. We've talked about this several different times. Being able to kind of surf the terrain where you are, putting the power out to get up over hills, and kind of continuing and using that momentum on the downhill, and kind of using your cadence to kind of keep your speed up and moving over these hills. And a lot of those are built into the workouts that we do that allow riders to get that experience where you're not just, at 85, 90 RPM all the time. And so you'll hear us describe the workouts here. If it's your first time here, if you're an Endurance Lab rider, you'll get a feeling for this through each of our workouts that really push you to get out of those comfort zones of where you're always spinning.
And a point that I love to bring in every time we talk about cadence, and you heard me say this before if you have listened to the podcasts that we bring to you, is cycling is a sport with so many facets. You're not going to be doing yourself any favor if you're just riding the same cadence, the same power, the same range of power all the time. You need, for your own neuromuscular connections, for your own muscles to work properly with one another, you need a variety of cadences. You need a variety of pressure that you apply on the pedals. You need all of those things so you become more efficient. So even if you go on a flat pancake course and you're going to be doing something very steady for a long time, in training, you want to have a range for cadence, for power, because that will make you that more efficient when you're out there on the flats.
Well, and it goes back to in triathlon, there's no such thing unless you're the first swimmer out of the water and you're a scuba biker. There's no such thing as I don't have to change my cadence or my power output, because you have turns and you're going to be passing people. So
and wind. How about the wind? We talked about the wind the other day.
Yeah, exactly. And Andrea, I know you heard some of the complaints about it. What were the specific complaints you heard, or was it just whining because it was too hard?
You're getting me in all sorts of trouble here. But it was just, I think it was just making the steady rides a little bit more challenging. Whereas I suppose from my point of view, I'm only just back after 2 months. So I'm just like super happy to be anywhere. And I kind of like the New York course, but I'm learning how to, and I was talking to Theia that I'm finding it hard to get my cadence up. So the rolling terrain was actually a really good opportunity to keep a focus on my cadence and start teaching my muscles and nervous system how to keep the cadence up. And I guess the question, I suppose it could be around then, like Theia answered, learning how to use a variety of cadences. I think there can be, if you're staying in one cadence all of the time, even if it's a very flat course, and correct me if I'm wrong, your legs actually can fatigue for the run. Being able to kind of raise it up and lower it down a bit will probably keep the legs a little bit fresher for running. We don't really have flat courses here. So for me, training on the hills on Zwift is really, really helpful, because we're always going to have a hilly course on really bad roads in Ireland. So
and honestly, there's one other thing that these people seem to forget, is that if you're trying to train a steady effort the whole time, there's this thing you can do on Zwift called workouts, and it will take away the terrain, or erg. It'll take away the terrain. So, I mean, again, for me, that's just whining. I'm sorry, because if I'm out on the road, I'm not gonna have that either.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you want to go where you just have no change of resistance whatsoever, just stare at the wall and pedal away. I mean, go old school trainer road, or there's a lot of different things you can do. Perf Pro, yeah. But I go back to that. You're doing yourself a disservice if you're trying to stay, 87 to 92 RPMs and 212 to 217 watts for, 3 hours consecutively.
Yeah.
I think it's just
sorry, Jason.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
I just had a question. Am I correct that if you haven't trained your ability to be flexible with different cadences, that just say something happens and you end up in either higher or lower cadence than normal, your heart rate response is going to be higher than if you had trained it? Is that correct?
I would say.
Yeah, I mean, your body's not going to respond.
I would say even as you're trained, because on some of the live workouts that I do that bring us really low on cadence, typically I will really exaggerate it and get it down to like 60 and 50, and what you'll be able to see is my heart rate will change, and I'll feel it more muscularly. I'll describe what I'm feeling. You'll see the heart rate kind of come down, and then when we go to high cadence, I'll really exaggerate and try to get to 110, 115, 120, and you'll see that heart rate go up maybe 8 to 10 points. And even though I do train it, just to realize that there's different systems and that there's different heart rates that are related to that is important. And I describe that, hey, you can do some trying to get some recovery by doing this, and then get back on the gear and just use those muscle systems, just like you're talking about, to be able to save those systems, or just kind of equally use them so that you could use it for the run, for example, in triathlon. For me, there's nothing after the bike. But for Theia, there's just hard breathing and trying to recover before she gets on her podium. So there's only that. But yeah, you could definitely see some changes in your heart rate.
Where that's actually interesting is, just say you were noticing that, and that understanding is going to show you that your fueling system may need to change. Because as the heart rates are going up, you're pushing more into that glycogen guzzling, blood sugar guzzling zone, where your nutrition has to adapt with that. So this is where you're learning everything in your training, so that when you come out of that race, you're not making all these excuses about, oh, my nutrition didn't work, da-da-da-da.
Yeah, my nutrition didn't work because I overbiked. I mean,
I overbiked. That's like every rider ever, right? Like, overbiked. There's just too much bike and not enough food.
Hey, that could be a YouTube channel. Every rider ever.
It is. That's like funny things that triathletes say.
It is funny because if you every time you hear someone say, "Oh, my nutrition didn't work out," sometimes it happens. I know, because sometimes your stomach just says, "Not taking it today. Sorry."
Yeah.
Usually that's because of over drinking during the swim, of a ocean swim. By the way, you shouldn't do that. Don't drink the ocean water.
Yeah, the ocean water. I'm like, how do you drink? Like, where's your bottle when you swim?
Yeah, it's the ocean. But the other part though that I'll look at someone's file. I'll say, hey, well, show me your power numbers, and then you look at, okay, now show me the power numbers of your best long ride brick or long ride run workout that you've done, and usually there's like 8 to 10 watt normalized power difference. The bad nutrition day being 8 to 10 watts higher, and they overcooked it, or at least in the beginning.
Yeah.
So
yeah, with all this talking about eating, we do have our topic on our kind of lineup here to talk about kind of the season and how we should be shifting, or maybe just at least being conscious or thinking about how different seasons affect how we feel and the things that we should do. Ian, every time I introduce this topic, I just see Ian in the corner going, no, eat everything all the time. Pizza before every workout. Ice cream and pizza.
Well, now we're coming into Christmas cookie season.
I was sharing with Andrea that patients, I do like a full history before most of my exams, and I asked them, like, oh, are you diabetic? And they usually say typically seasonal at the end of the year. It usually starts about Halloween, it goes through Thanksgiving, through Christmas, and sometimes I can still be diabetic when I get through Valentine's Day, but after that I'm usually good for the rest of the year.
Incredible.
So with that, Andrea's going to give us a couple thoughts that we can kind of think as we go into this colder season for the northern hemisphere. The time where Ian kind of shrivels up and starts to complain about the cold.
Yeah, and I'm gonna sort of roll with this intuitively, but I feel from even an evolutionary perspective and probably our lifestyles that as we hit into the darker mornings and darker evenings, we're hungrier. The weather is colder, we've less daylight, we've less vitamin D, and I feel our bodies sort of respond to that a bit like, you know, a bear wanting to hibernate. We're just a bit hungrier. It's probably not natural to be pushing as much training volume as well. You know, in the days we probably, you know, were less active over the winter time. We probably did sleep more because we were woken with the light. So I think bearing all of that in mind, people are hungry. And then we have opportunity called Halloween, Thanksgiving. Thankfully, we don't have Thanksgiving in Ireland where we're one. I think it can be a challenge where Thanksgiving rolls into Christmas, and now we know as far as Valentine's for some people, where the weight is just, it's almost expected to go on, and then that there's going to be this massive diet in January. And I think we need to change our mindsets around this a little bit, because it's just not really good for our health. But our motivation can dip down a little bit. We can have more emotional eating, maybe boredom. There's sort of a little bit of unease as the clocks change. We sort of want to be going out training, but we don't really want to be, and then we'll go and eat a snack or something. Yeah. And then I think if it's end of season, the athletes are dealing with the mindset of probably needing a bit of recovery. Maybe pushing it a bit hard. If there's any adrenal fatigue or fatigue as a result of a hard season, that's going to drive appetite as well. For various hormonal reasons, we're going to be hungrier for carbohydrates and fats and salty things. So if you need to take some recovery, I really would recommend that if this is the end of your season and you're going to feel a little bit on edge and uneasy as things kind of shift and change, but it's a good idea. So if you're someone who tends to kind of fluctuate in weight up and down during the winter, maybe take a look at what your weak spots are. Is it emotional eating? Is it boredom? Or where are you getting caught? Is it that when you go out for a party or something, you know, you just eat everything? And should you, you know, maybe look at how can I still enjoy myself, but not be gaining so much weight? I'm probably pretty good. I never really go up or down in my weight. I kind of do this thing I'd call leverage. If I want the dessert, I mightn't have the starter. If I want to have, you know, I always enjoy savory, so sweets aren't really an issue for me. If I want to have some wine, I mightn't have dessert. Or if I want to have a load of protein, I might need as much carbs. I think I just sort of do that automatically now. Maybe that's a bit obsessive and not everyone wants to do that. But I think we need to pick the times when we just want to enjoy ourselves. And go for it and not have any guilt. You know, when you make your decision, this is life. You need to enjoy yourself. But if you're doing that every single day, maybe not.
Yeah. So Andrea, I do the same thing. I cut out the beets to make sure I can have food that tastes good.
And that's where you're lacking the
vegetables.
Nitrates for your oxygen for VO2. Anyway, but I even forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, sorry. I'll go back to it. I guess we're talking about the emotional eating. I'll go back to it if I remember. Sorry.
Okay, just cut in whenever you've got it. So I was trying to think. Well, we're into colder weather, so there's going to be a shift. You know, I'm not telling people to eat salads in wintertime. That's just cruel. But we could be eating more. You know, unless you want to.
Anytime.
You know, cooked vegetables, roasted vegetables, broths, soups, casseroles with loads of veg in there, you know, warming foods. So you've got your spices, your cinnamon, your turmeric, your sort of curries, your herbs. If you keep things with a stock base or a tomato base.
Those are warm.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Cookies are warm, he said. Cookies are warm, he said. Beet cookies?
Cookies with herbs. What kind of herb do you put in your cookie, Ian?
Herb cookies, Ian.
It's usually it's like a sugar on top of it, maybe some Red Hots. That's my herb.
Nice.
Beets do make really good brownies. So do beans, black beans, and things like that. Yeah. If you find that you're craving loads of grains and it's starting to become an issue, well, switching like roasted root veg are lovely. Your squashes and your pumpkins and your your sweet potatoes and your potatoes. Maybe reducing fruit. Fruit is quite cold, or switching to stewed fruits with some cinnamon. Watching, listening to your appetite. We always have cravings for different things at different times. So if you're looking for a lot of, more protein, then do that, but drop the carbs. Or if you're looking for more carbs, maybe drop the fats. Or if you're looking for fats, drop the carbs. So you're always manage this shifting macro balance. And that's what I encourage people to do. It's your body talking. It's looking for things for a different reason. Switching to a hotter breakfast, so cooked oats rather than maybe your overnight oats, or scrambled eggs, or even like a miso or broth type breakfast can work really well. If you tend to be prone to sinus issues or chest issues, maybe watching dairy, because that can create a little bit more mucus in some people. One to watch out for is your fancy coffees and hot chocolates. They'll start inventing like the pumpkin spice super duper chocolate or whatever, and they're calorie bombs.
Oh man.
They're like 2 meals in a drink, which doesn't even satisfy you. So then like the muffin sneaks in, and we're way overblown on our calories. So if you're doing that, like, it's okay to go out and have one every now and again. But if that's every week or every day, it's going to show. What other things could you do? If weight is a bit of an issue, intermittent fasting can be helpful if you time that around your training sensibly. Jason, you use this approach sometimes, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Especially, I actually use it a good amount during recovery weeks, during the season, but I don't do it during hard weeks just because of the intensity. I know riders that do it kind of in between days, but that can be really challenging because then you need to fuel for the recovery. And so I just say it's got to be an easy week. It's got to be an easy week or time of off season where you're doing it low intensity.
Yeah, and that's the perfect way to do it.
And then also for women, right, is intermittent fasting is it's got to be really careful with that. We have different needs. So we got the hormones depending on the time of the month. So it's really tricky for women to be doing the same fasting that men might do.
Yeah, and the women that generally would choose the fasting approach are the ones that are probably already very strict. So it's just taking the calories down even further.
More.
I would always be mindful. I think the best diets for most women are just general good balance. Mm-hmm. I don't know why we tend to jump into slight issues much quicker. So being kind is always, we all should be kind to ourselves.
I don't know how you guys can do that. If I went to intermittent fasting, I would be murdering people every time I fast.
Well, I think there's a time. Well, I think because of the amount of training you do, Ian. But I'm sure there's times where you just don't. You may get through an early dinner and then you may not work out the next morning and you're not fueling, so you'll go through 12 or 14 hours without a meal. We're not talking like a 24-hour fast. We're talking just giving your body a chance to recoup, because a lot of times people may eat at like 9 or 10 at night and they're like, oh, I woke up, it's 8 o'clock, I've got to eat another meal. You're looking at 6 to 12 hours. That's a short window for your body to try to recover,
Yeah, no, I mean, I can do it. I can intermittent fast as long as I'm sleeping.
Yeah, and that's a lot of time.
But you're listening to your body, so
it
works for Jason and it doesn't work for Ian, and that's perfect. One thing that you could consider, like for me, I've worked really hard for the last 4 years at training, and this is going to be a nice year for me. And I was thinking I might do 4-week blocks and then a really easy week. And one thing I found really fascinating about the last 2 months, I've been quite sick, and my body went into sickness mode for a couple of weeks where I really couldn't eat anything because my stomach couldn't handle it, and my energy was, but I wasn't hungry. It was really fascinating, and I felt light and I felt more focused, and I was meditating more, and I found it quite interesting. And now I'm back to training. I'm hungry all of the time and I'm go. And I thought I might actually give myself one of these weeks every month where I do actually slow it all down again, tune in, eat less, very, very plain. But I can do that because I haven't got major goals for my training right now other than to really enjoy it. So if that suits some people, you could do, I don't like the name detox, but you could do a week that involves detox or more fasting, but that is not recommended if you're training hard or if your body says it doesn't want to do it. do a store cupboard detox. If it's not in your house, generally you're less likely to go for it. So after Halloween, you probably have cupboards full of chocolates and sweets. And my cousin actually in California she had a switch witch. So for when her kids gave her a certain number of sweets, they got a toy back. So she kind of managed to get all the trick-or-treating stuff back. And I thought that was a really good idea. So long as the switch witch doesn't eat it all then.
Yeah. We just throw everything. Okay. we just get everything out of the house 2 days later. It's just gone.
So our local dentist will pay $1 a pound for when your kids bring in their candy. So you go to the local dentist, you bring 2 or 3 pounds, your kid gets a couple bucks. Hey. And your dentist is I don't know what happens to the candy after, so I want all the staff has like pounds and pounds of candy in the back room or something.
Child candy thefts are on the rise in Jason's community.
Exactly. I mean, Rylan, my 6-year-old came home with like 2 buckets full of candy, and we just went to like 2 neighborhoods. It was like, really, that much candy? Like 2 handfuls from every house. Like, I don't know, it was nuts.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was a crazy thing. So what I'm hearing is, with this type of season, with this part of the season, as things are cooling off, both in our racing season as well as our environment, eating differently, eating warming foods, and listening to your body are kind of the take homes here to make sure that as athletes, the same way we take recovery time, that we give our bodies a chance to recover, and we respect that in order to have good long seasons. Nobody wants to be the January hero where you come out the gate, fast and ready, and you have such a short season. And by the time, March comes around, you're burning out and trying to hang on for the rest of the year. So, and that's what we're looking at. So
on that though, one of the things I like to do especially even if I don't have any race goals is I kind of build my training plan sometimes around like the holidays. Say, okay, I know Thanksgiving, I kind of go up build week. Going into Thanksgiving, and on Thanksgiving Day itself, I'm going to do, a 100-kilometer ride or a long run. Christmas too. Like, so this year I'm going to be traveling down to Chile for 2 weeks, right around Christmas, New Year's. So I'm going to starting in December, build up my run again. And over those 2 weeks, I'm going to do, a 100-mile run week. And then I won't quite be there for 2 weeks. So it'll be less than that. But that one intermittent week is going to be a 100-mile run week. So I can do whatever I want that week.
It's funny. I just did the same in my training peaks before we came on call. I put in my recovery week the first week of January, but for me as well, I find training around all the family and activity of Christmas, I find it's my balance. So I'll get out into the hills and to have a run on Christmas morning, it just feels great rather than sitting around all day. So yeah, that's a great idea for a lot of people. I think getting fresh air.
It keeps you from blowing up on that one uncle.
Yeah.
Or your one stupid cousin.
Oh, man. Too bad Mitch isn't here. He's got some great stories about family quarrels on Christmas and Thanksgiving days. We'll have to ask him about that on another day. All right. So a little recap here. So we're going to jump over to what our lab riders are doing in this week. So we talk a little bit about the skills that we work on each week, kind of the different type of workouts that we offer here at the Endurance Lab. And again, if you're interested in any of that sort of thing, head over to endurancelab.fit. I've got the notes over here to Theia. Do you have them there in front of you for the skills that our lab riders are doing in the Ability Lab this week?
Yes. So we did a standing in the mud workout this week, which was everyone's favorite. And it was designed to get the rider ready to produce power during those rides or races that require going through some tough terrain. So grass, dirt, mud, something that requires that muscular power, going up steep climbs, short but steeper climbs. So there was change. Change in cadence, body position, as well as power. So we had seated, standing. The 2-minute standing intervals at the end of those blocks were quite challenging, but our riders have been building up to it. We've been working quite a bit on standing. Then we had the sprint party workout, and we call it a sprint party because we are doing sprints from higher gear, seated, higher gear standing, then lighter gear at speed, standing and seated. So all different ways of working those muscles and the power as well. And then we finished it up with the lab pulls workout, which is really simulating the hard pulls that you would do in a group ride or race setting. So you're in the wind, right, pulling, falling back, but keeping your speed, and then doing it again and again. And at the end, you have a big finale there that we throw in.
Yeah, and I think these are all skills and tools where you're not only trying to reach these wattage goals, but being able to learn these skills to be able to utilize these out on the road, whether it be on a group ride, whether it be on a race, a fondo, a cyclocross, and that sort of thing. Because you're, again, like we talked about earlier, you're never going to find yourself in the perfect cadence or in the perfect position, but you need to know within yourself what you need, what you can do, and what you need to get off the, what point you need to get off the front. So, quick summary here today. Really great talk today about kind of starting in cyclocross.
Hey, Jason, don't forget about strength workouts.
All right. I start next week. Ian is all excited, and I know a lot of the guys have started this too. And so I'll shift it on over, and Ian will talk about what you could do in the off season if you still want to train and want to get yourself all muscular like Ian is.
Yeah. So if you want to get your beach muscles ready for Christmas. Yeah, what we're doing this, there's a few of us, we're kind of piloting a little strength program.
Yeah.
And we're focused on short-term power and explosiveness. So there's a lot of exercises that we built in. It's 12 weeks that we're testing out now, see how it goes. And it's definitely focused on those explosive muscles in your quads, your glutes, hamstrings. So those things that we definitely need for our racing. Even for triathletes, these are things we need to work on, because you got to be able to get out, get around the corner, get around people, or just be able to recover from that. And the secondary focus is core, because if you can keep all of those muscles very strong, you're less likely to be injured. So specifically some of the glute and hamstring work that we're going to be doing, which I wish I could watch everybody on video doing it. Yeah, and it's one, if you can do it, then you're pretty much guaranteeing you won't have a hamstring issue.
Yeah, and
so it's gonna be a good strength program.
We've had some good talks with the people who are piloting this program, and I still have my race on Saturday, but I'm looking forward to jumping in. I may or may not take the camera to the gym, because it does require you to have a good amount of equipment. So it may be fun to kind of watch a beginner from the end, kind of just go at it and see what kind of weight people are starting with. It looks like people are getting pretty sore, so I have a feeling people are taking a pretty big bite out of the first test that Ian has put together. Because people are walking home, not being able to walk upstairs, and not being able to do all kinds of things after the first testing week of workouts, Ian. So I guess, should people be starting with just the bar, with just a couple weights on? What are people trying to do out there?
Well, it builds basically. You start at what you're pretty sure you can do, just a few reps of, and then you add about 10 pounds each time, 10 or 20 pounds, depending on how easy it was. And if you run out of reps to keep going up, that's fine, or run out of sets, and you can readjust later on down the road. So for me, I pretty much hit what I needed to hit for high pull, power clean, and squat. But for deadlift, I had more room, but I'll adjust that as we go.
Nice.
I'll adjust that as we go. So I did take some video of the high pull and of the deadlift, so I'll put it up on the Endurance Lab page.
So we'll see.
I'll make a very quick comment on the core stuff and avoiding injury.
Yeah.
I had a question. Somebody asked me, how do you run on these cyclocross races? Are you a runner? Because there's a fair amount of running off the bike. And the answer to that is, I am not a runner, and I don't have any problems being off the bike, running, and carrying my bike, because I work on my core every day.
Yeah.
So that will have your back, literally.
Yeah. There are some great off the bike workouts in our Endurance Lab channel as well. So check that out on YouTube. We got some really great views on the ones when you just get off the bike and need a stretch, or just 15-minute workouts daily. So definitely check those out. All right. So some great conversation today from the coaches. Talked a little bit about just cyclocross and kind of just getting into that season, or getting into the sport. The evolution of the Grand Fondo, with a great event coming up here in Southern California over the weekend. Talked about gearing and changing cadence, and a lot of whining about the New York course, as Ian would say. And then respecting our bodies, our fueling methods, and just understanding this part of the season and how we should fuel ourselves. Definitely a great
eating
chat today.
cookies.
Yeah, and eating cookies and making sure that you are peaking for your Christmas and then peaking for New Year's and peaking for your events. Those will now be your core events as you hit into the off season, and you need a final build. Make sure it builds to those final events. So I want to thank everybody today for joining us here in the Coach's Corner. If it is your first time listening out there in podcast world, and would like to hear more content from the Endurance Lab, head over to your favorite podcast app and search Endurance Lab and click subscribe. Also, I did want to bring up, you can also write a review, up to a 5-star review, whether it be in iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you are listening or hearing us. And the more reviews that we get, or how we can get better, that's what, yeah. The more you get, the easier it is for people to see this. We are trying to get some traction, and we are getting some traction from the help of you, the viewer. So definitely get on there if you like what we're doing. Click your review. Let us know how we can do better. If you want, if you have any issues, send them all to Ian. He'll take care of those. But
quickly.
Exactly. For more information on when the next lab is and to look at the workouts that we do, head over to endurancelab.fit, where you can learn and you can join us to train smart and get results. We'll see everybody next week. All right.